Oh, improve it, peeps. I have a show for you. The one, the only, Tayo Rockson is here. And here is how Tayo is improving it. First and foremost, Tayo is a writer, speaker, consultant, podcaster, professor, co-founder, and brand strategist at UYD Management, which is a strategic consulting firm that empowers organizations to incorporate sustainable diversity and inclusion practices. Now, as the son of a diplomat, Tayo grew up understanding the nuances of multicultural diversity while living on 4 continents. You're going to hear the word nuance, and you're going to hear about him living on 4 continents today. He leveraged these experiences to establish himself as an authority in communicating effectively across cultures and personal branding. He graced various stages to share his knowledge, including TEDx, which is awesome, the prestigious Chautauqua Institution, and the United Nations. Now, Tayo is the host of a podcast called As Told by Nomads, which I was lucky enough to be a guest on. And that podcast is ranked in the top 5 tier of the top 25 business podcasts for entrepreneurs on entrepreneur.com. He's the author of the book, Use Your Difference to Make a Difference, and a professor at the prestigious Imperial College Business School, as well as Felician University. Now, in 2020, he launched the national anti-racism campaign called #Let'sTalkBias. In 2021, Tayo was named in Remote Weekly's list of the 100 most influential remote experts and starred in the award-winning movie Impact, which is about 3 people who embark on a personal journey to transform the way they communicate on their quest to impact the world. Tayo is one, I always love our guests, but I was a guest on his show and I just walked away feeling so energized, and I feel the same way today. He is a light. He is a joy. He is really using his difference to make a difference. And if you are a leader who leads a cross-cultural team, then stay tuned because we are going to talk about so many things. He, first and foremost, really gives us some really strong acronyms and best practices on how you can better communicate cross-culturally, that's a tongue twister, in your organization. We'll talk about some of the challenges we see in the workplace when it comes to communicating cross-culturally with invisible disabilities. And then we talk about some of the things that you can stop and start doing as a leader to help connect and communicate in a cross-cultural world. Let's just dive right in. Here's the one, the only, Tayo Rockson.
Are you a leader or change maker inside of your business, organization, or corporation? Are you looking for new, innovative ways to drive morale through the roof? Are you looking for fun and exciting icebreakers, team building exercises, and activities that will foster team growth, friendships, loyalty, and completely transform your organization from the inside out? Have you been searching for a fun and unique way to create change instead of the same old dry, boring leadership books and icebreakers that aren't actually working? Hi, I'm Erin and Tayo, business improv edutainer, fail fluencer, and professional Zombie who is ready to help you improve it. My mission in life is to help you develop teams and leaders through play, improv, and experiential learning. In this podcast, we will deep dive into professional development, team building, effective communication, networking, presentation skills, leadership training, how to think more quickly on your feet, and everything in between. We have helped everyone from Fortune 500 companies to small mom and pop shops transform their business, their leadership, and their people through play. So grab your chicken hat. We are about to have some fun. Welcome to Improve It, the podcast.
Tayo, welcome to the Improve It podcast. I'm going to keep my day job. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, it's my pleasure. It's okay. Singing is a great way to start anything.
Oh, and I love, you know what? You have, I'm seeing you on camera. We've talked on your show, but you have such an awesome voice. Like if I'm a listener right now, I'm just closing my eyes. I'm like, wow. Just love your voice. You have like a fun energy for the podcasting webs. So You've
My
got it better
gosh.
than this nasal twang thing I've got going on. So
No, what are you talking about? Everybody's got an accent. Everybody's got an accent. I
no,
love it.
yours is better. Improve it, peeps. You're welcome. You're welcome from his voice today because you're getting a reprieve. You're getting a reprieve from this. So, all right. I want to start off because we met as I was a guest on your show, As Told by
Yes.
Nomads, which is a fantastic show. We're going to link to that in the show notes for our audience too. I want to play a fun little game just so our audience can get to know you a little bit.
Let's do it.
All right. And it's called 5 Facts. So it's got a little ditty because, I like to sing. And I'm just going to do it. And then I want you to give us 5 facts about you that we couldn't find on the interwebs. We couldn't find on your bio, your LinkedIn profile, all the things. So I'll do that little ditty. It goes like this: 5 facts, 5 facts, 5 facts, 5 facts, 5 facts. Let's go.
Let's go.
What's number 1?
So I'm a hot sauce aficionado. One of my actual dreams, one of my dreams is to be on the show Hot Ones. I don't know if anyone has ever watched that show. It's a show on YouTube. They basically bring on all these celebrities to answer questions, and as each question gets answered, the sauce gets hotter. And so I love doing that. And I do this thing in myself where, they sell the hot sauces at the end of the show. And so one of them is the extra mean green pucker butt. Pucker butt.
And just so you know, he's lifting it up and on camera right now. If you're listening, you can't see it. Okay.
Yeah. And then there's the sauce called the bomb, which sounds just as hot as it is. And, I'm one of those people. I know some people like taste, but the hotter, the better. I like that torturous feeling because I know I'm going to conquer something. So that's one fact.
Okay.
Second fact, I wanted to be a basketball player growing up. That was the third one. I think everybody knows this, but I grew up in 5 countries, 4 continents. I'm fourth. I'm an art collector, and then 5th, I am part of Big Brother Big Sisters. I've been a mentor since 2017.
Wow, I love that organization. Okay, well, you nailed that. You nailed that, and I love that fact that I just found out about you. Also, I knew that you love basketball because when I was on your show, and I'm just going to tell we call our audience the Improve It Peeps. When I was on your show, I was eyeballing that teal shoe sneaker behind you, which is underneath your Lakers jersey, which is, again, you can't see this if you're just listening to the show, but I really want your teal sneakers. So we're going to, I told you one day I'm coming to New York. It's going to happen. It's going to be mine. It's going to be mine.
It's going to be yours. And for those who are not watching on YouTube, this is she's referring to the LeBron 8 South Beach edition. All right. Yes. So that is what we're talking about. It's supposed to mimic the South Beach colorways for the sneakerheads over there. So there.
So beautiful. It's like a trophy. Keep that in your Zoom profile. Okay. So, all right. Well, let's do this. I like to start each show too by setting an intention. So what is one intention, a 1-word intention that you want to give to our audience today? What's one intention? 1 word.
Nuance.
Ooh.
Yeah. My mission statement is use your difference to make a difference. It's the title of my book. It's my mission statement. But I feel like we live in a binary world. So we live in a nuanced world governed by binary systems. And so I think the more we appreciate that we have multiple aspects and layers to ourselves, the better we'll be able to be to ourselves and to each other.
I love that. And I know people say this and it makes me want to throw up in my mouth every time. But I just got chills because I really did. That was special.
You got to turn the heater on. I don't know why you keep doing this to yourself.
I'm cold.
Is that all this chill?
Yeah.
Like what we do?
I know, right? Everybody's like, I just cried. I just got no, but literally, nuance is a perfect word for you. I feel like that is when I was researching you, which is fun because I've been on your show and I now feel like I kind of know you a little bit. I was like, what a good guy. And you really...
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So much pressure.
So much pressure. Yeah. He's going to be awful. No, I'm just kidding. You are just so special and how you have used some of the differences that you've had to experience in your life to make positive change in the world around you. And I want to say thanks because that's the kind of world I want to live in. And also, I got a 3-year-old almost, and that's the kind of world I want him to live in. And so we're just setting it up. You're setting it up. So let's go back to one of your fun 5 facts. So you said, and this is something that we did know, but I will give that one to you. Okay.
I know. I got to find one more. Oh, my favorite book is The Alchemist. Okay. There we go. We replaced that.
There it is.
Bam.
There we go. Boom, boom. Okay. So you did grow up, though, in 5 countries, 4 continents, and you used the fuel behind what you called your identity crisis, like you said, to help your difference, to make a difference. So you also said you're a third culture kid, which is someone who spent the formative part of their childhood years outside of their parents' culture.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of places to live, right? Were there any places that you lived that were just really transformational for you? That really, because I definitely know, this is, like you said, you're a third culture kid. But is there a space or a special time that really transformed your thinking and really allowed you to think the way that you do now?
I've thought about this a lot because I always get different variations. Sometimes I say, oh, where's your favorite place? What changed your life the most? And the way I broke it down is Nigeria always has my heart, right? It's a huge part of my identity, the name, how I look, where I'm from, a lot of what I identify with in terms of traditions and culture. I felt like Burkina Faso, which is a French-speaking country, West Africa, was where I started to get a sense of who I wanted to be. I really started studying, a lot of the leaders I admire, Nelson Mandela, the late Nelson Mandela, Oprah Winfrey, and I really got into basketball, and that was when I was like, I'm going to do this. And then, in high school, when I came back to Nigeria, it was a real test of what I decided that I was going to be. Because when I came back, it was more like, are you sure that you can do this? This is not what we normally accept. And then when I went to the United States when I was 17, that was probably the most transformative because I could get to take everything I learned. And I signed a contract with myself. I basically said, I got to stop trying to fit into multiple, identities here. I just got to accept that I'm all of my experiences, my lived experiences. And it's okay if other people don't understand, but it's more important for me to accept who I am and be okay with that. And so maybe that decision at 17 was the most important, but it really was a combination of all those things. Because, I was swinging on one pendulum to go here to fit in, and coming out here where I really couldn't even try to fit in, even if I tried. But then I had to feel the pushback. And then I was like, oh, stop it, Tayo. It's okay.
That is, okay, wait. So 17, were you a junior in high school, senior? What year was that?
So in Nigeria, a lot of students graduate early compared to the United States. Yeah. So I was 17. I had just graduated. And then it was a month or 2 away from being 18. But I landed in Virginia for my college. And so, yeah.
That is crazy. And how awesome at such a young age that you were able to put that contract with yourself into place. I love that. And maybe you didn't say that then, and now you say that was the contract, but you signed a deal. I mean, that is awesome.
Yeah, I did. So Erin, I think a lot of people listening to this who have had to grow up quickly. I grew up under initially dictatorships before we transitioned to civilian rule. And so you learn like the rules quickly. And I'm the oldest. So your family, your parents would tell you, you got to do this in case I'm not here. Blah, 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 blah. And then, so I didn't really know any other way, if I'm being honest. I was always one of those people that I was thinking about the future as well as the present and how I wanted to show up in that because I knew people were watching me and my family and outside of that. So, I grew up quickly.
I believe it.
It's probably why I'm very childlike now. I feel like I have a lot of that childlike energy
which is
without
good.
being childish.
It keeps you young. It keeps you young. Wait, okay. So I have 2 thoughts about what you just said too. So also you said some of your heroes earlier on, you said were Oprah Winfrey. That's why I know we're like kindred spirits because I have her sitting on a sandwich. I have this picture of her. It's called Celebs on Sandwiches. And she's sitting in my office. She's on a caprese sandwich. And I look at her every day because I'm like, oh my God, I love you. Love you. Love you. And I also think too, how many siblings did you have being the oldest?
I have 2 younger brothers.
2 younger brothers. Yeah, okay. So you were like in charge. That's a lot. And I think being the oldest, I'm also the oldest and I just have a younger brother, but it's so interesting. Birth order plays such a role in not only you had so many experiences that I had never had, but you also were the oldest. So you felt really responsible probably for your siblings, for yourself. And I think it's okay to bring that childlike energy now. I think that's really okay.
You know, what's so funny? I've always been this hyper kid, this guy who always did this, but there were moments when I was having the identity crisis where it was used against me, right? You know, like this, you know, like why are you always so energetic? And I wasn't a bad student. I was a good student. So it was always that complexity. I was a good student. I played sports, but I was basically, I could be a class clown if I wanted to be, and people would be like, sit down.
Yes.
And so, it's so fascinating now with the career I have and doing the multiple things I do, because I was told so many times that was not, if I kept doing this, I wouldn't be successful. And then here you find out different ways to express your energy. And so I think that's why it's one of the reasons I really don't like the idea of limited. You know, I really fight against oppression and suppression because I felt suppressed and oppressed multiple times.
Yeah. And then you're changing constantly your environment with your energy. So I can imagine that's like, who am I in this new space? But you have found a wonderful way to channel who you are, which I think is so fantastic. You'll hear in the bio. You've heard it in the bio. So successful.
Oh my gosh. Thank you.
Can I say the flip side of that? Because in improv, we have a saying that if you fail, there are no mistakes. There are only gifts. If you can see over here, I got this fail, sign behind me in my little podcast closet. And it really just means that when you have a setback, it doesn't on stage. If you say something wrong in a scene, or if like you make a mistake and your scene partner notices, you don't discount it. You bring it into the scene. You make it a part of the scene. And that's sort of metaphorical for life, I think. It's really something sets you back. Something makes you have to stop in your tracks and not move forward. Instead of being like, I'm stopping. You bring it in, you make it a part of your life. And I know you've had some setbacks, probably many along this journey. So what is like one of the, if you could just pinpoint a moment, maybe in your career or just even before that, as you're going through all of these moves, what's something that really stands out to you as a moment where you had a huge setback, but you learned and you brought it in, you made it a part of the scene of your life? What is something?
I mean, so I've had several, but I can think of one when I graduated from college. And to me, I did everything I was supposed to do. I graduated with honors, 2 concentrations, a minor. And I was applying for jobs starting junior year. And between my junior year and senior year, I had over 85 plus job rejections before I stopped counting. And when you're not a citizen, you have to find a place to work for at least a year so they can sponsor you. I mean, you have to work, you have at least a year until you find someone that can sponsor you, rather. And I was just panicking just because I was like, I mean, it's not my bad grades, right? I mean, I have good grades. I did everything. I was the vice president of marketing. I ran 2 nonprofits. I was in all the honor societies, and it just kept, you're too young, you're too green. We don't sponsor visas. You're not from the country. I didn't realize you spoke English too well when I read your first name. Any range of things, and I just kept thinking, I can't, I don't know. And so I had to go and I remember I had to convince my someone I had interned with before. And I said, hey, look, is there any job that we could do? This is when Twitter was just popping. I said, I have like a decent following on Twitter. I have a marketing degree as well. Maybe we could, do this social media thing. And I had to convince him. And then he eventually allowed me to come on. And then, I got signed on for more than 90% less than I thought I was going to make. And then they brought me on, and then they switched my job to sales. So you're going to do sales. And I never done sales before. And that was just the first failure that I had, because it wasn't anything I even imagined my life to be. But it was a setup for what was to come a couple of years after, which was my car accident.
Well, tell us about that. Okay. Hello. Okay.
That's a cliffhanger.
That's a cliffhanger. And I want to press play on that.
I'm going to tell the audience a little secret. You asked me one, and I was like, let me just say one that led up to another, and then I'll set it up because I didn't want to. I didn't want to make it sound like I would be talking for 10 minutes. So I was like, let me just like.
You know what? Yeah, I needed to insert right there. This is podcasting 101. Tell us more. There's me. No, I could keep listening. I'm like enthralled right now. Keep going.
Okay. So in 2012, we're about to be 10 years from that. I was, I was about a year out of this job. I hated the job, but I was also in a place where I was like, don't complain. Why are you looking to give tourists a mouth? You get to stay in the country. What are you talking about? Other people don't get as lucky. And then I just knew I could be doing more. And then I was driving at the time in my burgundy Toyota Camry. And I got to this part where the road merges into the highway. I'm cruising down my lane. And all of a sudden, my car gets cut into half because, this neighboring car lost control. And so I'm swerving out of the way so I don't get hit. I smash into the left guardrail. Boom. One car. Boom. Two cars. Boom. Right guardrail. Boom. Back to left guardrail. Boom. Hit it with such impact. The car is perpendicular to the bridge. I'm certain I'm about to fall over. Yeah. And I'm 22. I'm screeching. I'm thinking, this is my life. I thought I was like Nelson Mandela. I was going to do all these things. And I hadn't done anything I said I was going to do. And, the cliche things, your life flashes, you're wondering, what have you done? I couldn't really say anything. And simultaneously, because everything has happened so quickly, adrenaline's kicking in. I slammed the brakes. I was kicking in. I was just trying to kick out of the door. My car was totaled. I somehow managed to escape. And I was in the middle of the highway. Zoom, zoom, cars, two other cars there. And there was debris everywhere. My car was totaled. And nothing happened to me. And I'm thinking, wait, what? I'm looking at my totaled car. I'm looking at the debris. I'm looking at the other people. And I'm looking at the guy's car who had caused the accident. And I'm in so much shock, and I'm looking at him, and as my eyes come into focus, I recognize him. I'm like, we went to school. What were you doing? How dare? And then I calmed down.
You went to school with him?
Yeah, because it was, in Virginia, and it wasn't his fault or anything, but it was. But then I calmed down. He was so apologetic, but I always took that moment because I remember that idea of what would have happened at 22 if I just died and not done anything.
Yeah.
And for me, it gave me that courage, that bravery. My name, Tayo, is short for Tayo, which means the brave one or a warrior has brought us joy. And I said, I had to live up to my name. And so I started plotting to quit my job. And so if you're not a citizen, you either have to get married, get another job, or go back to school. And for me, I knew New York City was where I wanted to go. So I started applying. I started studying for the GMAT. I didn't do well on the GMAT because I didn't study the way.
Awful test.
Yeah. Awful test. But I also didn't have enough time. I just decided I was going to do it. And so I just, somehow, a couple of months, I said, I'll read some books and do the GMAT. And I didn't do the time. And then I got a low GMAT score, but I felt like I had high GPA and enough. And so I conditionally got accepted. So all the schools I applied to rejected me. Fordham, which I ended up going to, conditionally accepted me. And then they said, we're only going to conditionally accept you because of your low GMAT score. And you have to prove to us that you can do well in three, business law, statistics, and there was another course that skips my mind now. And I just remember, you know what, I'm moving. I don't know. So I didn't know anyone. I just packed all my stuff and quit the job and moved to New York City, came down in visa status. I had a work visa and I came down to student visa status. And then, it was there. And then, the New York thing, if you don't have any, you could be broke for so long. But then, I was like, I'm going to figure it out. But there were several of those ones. In New York, I ended up getting fired twice. Right? I ended up being broke multiple times. Then I ended up having to go to the school to convince them to let me work for them to pay off my last semester because I wasn't sure I was going to graduate. And then when I started my podcast in school, they all said, what are you doing? You are studying for a communication degree and a marketing degree. You should probably go to recruiting trips. But I was just, like, no, I want to do this podcasting thing because I feel like it's a great launch. And then they laughed at me and and they were right? I remember trying to get gummies one time. My card got declined. I mean, several failures, Erin.
Hey.
But yeah, that's what happened.
But look at you now. Okay, first of all, I can't believe that you were okay. There were some serious angels just holding onto your car in that moment. That is insane. And also meant to be because you're supposed to be here where you are. And also, Fordham, whatever. I don't want to say what I want to say. I can't. But look at him now. Okay, look at him now. And that is just such a good segue because now you're the CEO of UYD Management, which is a consulting firm that focuses on helping companies create inclusive environments, diversify their pipeline, and expand globally into new markets. So you said Fordham, and you started this show, your awesome show. That was a toot, improve it, peeps. I did it like my 3-year-old there. I've never done that on this show before. But it's, you've started this company. What led you to that? How did you got through all these setbacks, but what led you to start this company?
Well, yeah. So to be fair to Fordham, they at least condition accepted me, and I was able to graduate with them.
Okay, we are grateful. Yes. We are grateful, but you know what? Like, don't doubt him. You know what I mean?
Don't doubt it. Don't doubt. But it's so interesting though because it was after my first year. I'm an avid podcast listener. I've always been. I was early. I'm always like I was early to social media. I was early to this, and so I started getting the idea in my head that I wanted to launch my own podcast. And it was right around the time I found that term that you mentioned earlier, TCK, Third Culture Kids, because I was reading a BuzzFeed article that says 20-something signs you're a TCK. And it was really connecting to all my lived experiences. You think in multiple time zones, you're wondering what your parents are. You're like, someone's asking where you're from. You're like, what, do you really want to know the answer?
Yeah.
How much time do you have? And so I just thought, whoa, this word, Third Culture Kids. I feel like this is, I can speak to this. And so I joined every Facebook group, TCK. I used hashtag TCK on Twitter. I joined every single one of these things. And then right around the time I was getting an idea to launch a podcast, I was thinking about what I could speak to. And I said, well, this is just something I have a lived experience on. So everyone I found on Twitter, I just reached out to them. I slid into their DMs and I said, hey, I'm thinking of starting a podcast. I want to talk about TCKs. I see your TCK. Would you be interested? And I got more. I went from 80 plus job rejections to 80 plus. Yes. Yeah. No one ever talks about this. This is all that. And so I was doing that in between school. All right. And it was multiple time zones where I could talk to someone from, Philippines one day, someone in the West Coast, someone in the East Coast. And I just started to find my voice, right? It wasn't really, I didn't know what it was going to be. I enjoyed doing it. And then gradually people started to find it and then they was like, oh, this is really good. This is really good. And then there was one person from the World Bank who had heard an episode of mine, or someone sent an episode and says, hey, I don't know if you've ever thought about speaking. And I was like, yeah, I have. Right? But we think you could come down to DC. If you could come, I was in New York. So come down to DC to speak to some kids who also grew up like you, some, diplomat. And I was like, I saw it for myself, but I didn't see it that soon. And then, we don't have any money or anything, but, if you could come back, it would be good. And at the time, my parents were living in DC, so I thought, oh, cool, I could just crash with them. And so I did that, and I didn't really know what to pack, but I felt like I could trust myself, and that was the beginning of me trusting myself. And so I then started to see a speaking engagement path, and then it was a long, rocky road because it was hard to prove my experience, like, who is this kid, who's this guy? But the episodes saying World Bank led me to leverage that into more opportunities later on. So, yeah.
That is awesome. And then that's essentially how you started UYD Management. This is how you got into speaking. How long have you had your podcast, by the way? I should know this, but how long?
August 2014. So we're getting
That's a long time. Okay. First of all, that's like before... You're an early adopter. You got like the first iPhone. Like you are an adopter. Okay. That's a long, I started my business in 2014. That's a long time.
Yeah, so we started around the same time. I started the business then too. But yeah, it was 2014. I didn't know what I was doing, honestly. I just knew I loved it.
Who does? I never know. I told my team that one day. I'm like, we use improv here to teach people, and we're just making all of this up as we go. You know what I mean? So that's really it. And let me ask you this. Because I like when you said, I wrote a contract to myself, which is so cool. I believe in that. I really believe in writing contracts to ourselves and writing contracts to the universe. And I mean, we got a little spiritual in your show as well. But I want to ask you this question. Like if you were to write yourself a letter to your former self before you did that speaking engagement in DC, What advice would you tell younger Tayo?
I would tell him that he is enough and he doesn't have to compare himself to other people's accolades. I got stuck in that for a little bit. Because, when you're getting your MBA, and I have my MBA, you're people that are, they're going to be recruited to all these great firms, and you are one of those candidates, and they're looking for all these things in your resume. And in my head, I was like, I just started a podcast. What do I have to say? I'm a year out of this, and when that lady reached out and said, you could speak to people that grew up like you, and it just really clicked in my head. I was like, I have life experience.
Yes.
There's something I learned from it. It might not be something other people understand, but I can give that to someone. And so it really got into my packaging mind. And I'm a marketer and a brand strategist. So I started really thinking about it, it ultimately led me to understand you've been a guy in between multiple cultures all your life. You've studied that, whether you did it intentionally or unintentionally, what the companies need today. They need to understand how to connect effectively across cultures. What is that? Diversity, equity, inclusion.
Yes. I love this so much. Okay, wait. Really quick, I just want to cap this for the Improve It peeps. Because I think so many people, first of all, you are a brilliant marketer because your story is so, I went to your website to research you and I was like, this is it. I mean, it's just your tagline is there. Your story is there. I know all the things and it's perfect. It's not confusing. It's so streamlined. But essentially, it's your story, right? Every person has a story. I think leaders get caught up in, well, I want to do more speaking in my organization, or I want to speak at my association I'm a part of, but I don't have anything to say. And I think you and I both are sitting here today because we're like, you know what? We have something to say. Every human being has something to say, and it's just owning that confidence and leaning into that confidence muscle. So I want to encourage people listening to do that. Take Tayo's advice. Go and tell your younger self, shut up those negative voices, because I think that we all have a beautiful, your story is so beautiful. It needs to be told. You need to continue telling it. And everyone listening has a story. So knowing that our audiences are, who our audience is, this amazing group of people, leaders who work in these cross-cultural environments, if you could list 3 best practices for our audience to go back and help them communicate and connect cross-culturally within their organizations, what are 3, if you could give us 3 tips or 3 best practices that you teach on or know to be true?
So I'm so glad you said 3, because it's something I call seeing beyond the foggy system, and I break it down into an acronym. So if you think about the CS is security. Think about security, success, and belonging. So every company needs to know what each employee needs to be successful, and that takes knowing them, what they need to feel like they belong, and what makes them feel safe, right? And you're going to find out what makes them feel safe is multiple things across different lenses, right? And if you really do your job managing, leading, and coaching, that idea of understanding those nuances with what success looks like for one person, what security is like for another person, and what belonging is like, is going to encourage you to really create a safe space. And then you have to educate yourself on, that's the E. The first E, educate yourself on the optimized environments to ensure that success exists, that security exists, and belonging exists. And then the second E is really exploring your own biases and triggers. Each one of us has biases. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. But what are those moments where your biases flare up? What are those moments where you're triggered? They're going to be internal, external. And if you really understand your triggers, you're going to be able to understand how to understand and change behavior. And so I always say the secret to change behavior is understanding your triggers. And so if you understand your triggers and you explore your biases, you're able to actually grow. And so, for recap, C is success, security, belonging, first S. The first E is educate yourself on the optimized environments for security, success, and belonging. And the second E is exploring your biases and triggers.
Oh my God, I love this. And I love that you had I love it. I didn't even know that you had that. And I was like, you have 3 things and you had an acronym, all the things. I love it. And C is so easy. I love that.
Security, see beyond the foggy systems.
See beyond the foggy systems. I love that. Okay. Just jotting down notes here because that's how I recap this for you, Improve It peeps. Okay, I gotta take notes because this is fantastic. And I think a lot of people listening today feel like they have a lot of challenges in their organization when it comes to communicating cross-functionally. What would you say some of the biggest challenges are that you see within organizations when it comes cross-functionally, cross-culturally? What are some of those biggest challenges?
Well, it really comes down to the standards and norms, right? I don't feel like we humanize a lot of people, right, in today's world.
Yeah.
When we think about standards and norms, sometimes they favor a certain group of people. So you and I might be able-bodied. Or let me speak for myself. I am able-bodied, right? And so we're not necessarily, a lot of companies might not necessarily think about how to create opportunities for people that are not able-bodied. And you know, it's in the language, it's in the policies, it's in the parking, it's in the health policy. But if you do that without doing what I said earlier, you're going to create an environment from your own vantage point. So you don't invite and create a system of inquiry. Then you think about the invisible and mental health issues from many people. I've been blessed to have a lot of friends who are able to educate me on several ways chemical depression is different from situational depression, for example. But that's so hard to communicate.
Yeah.
Because then it becomes, it's affecting your performance. And then you factor in different cultures and different backgrounds and what it's like for someone to express oneself in a different culture and how that might be not professional to you because of business standard. And you're like, wait, is that really professional? You know, I've been in places where people have told me, cut your hair, right? Or your hair is too this and all that. And so it's a multiple layer of those things. And really, it's really reflecting on those standards and norms. Who do they fit? Do they include everyone? Is there an invitation for someone to challenge that and without fear of consequence of something happening to them because they challenge it and they're telling you how your policy is affecting them?
Oh, I love this so much. The through line of what I teach is right on this. It's like, make sure you create a culture of a place where people feel like they feel seen, they feel heard, they feel valued, they feel like they belong.
Yes.
And it's just blows my mind sometimes that, and again, I run a small business, so I have a very small team. When you have a large organization, there's so many different types of people. And if these policies don't make sure that every single person feels included, they don't feel like they feel seen, then they're not going to want to show up every single day. They're not going to want to do the work. They're not going to be productive. And then ultimately, it's going to be a downfall for every human being who's involved. So
100%.
I love that. Okay. You're just throwing some knowledge here, So let me ask you this, because I want to plug that book. What is one thing that you would tell a leader to start doing when it comes to communicating cross-culturally? And what's one thing you would tell a leader to stop doing? And if you want to know more after he answers this, get the book, Use Your Difference to Make a Difference. Okay. It's just a soft plug. Soft plug.
Hey, it's a hard plug if you're watching on video.
Yeah. Hard plug. Okay.
You know, you by now, you know, I always teach in frameworks. I have frameworks. So the book is broken down into 3 parts. There's that word again, 3. My favorite number.
Yes.
Fun fact. There you go. The book is broken down into 3 parts. Educate, don't perpetuate, instead communicate. And yeah, poetry is one of my favorite things to indulge in. So in the educate, it's really, I talk about how you need to educate yourself on your biases, which you talked about, triggers, and your values. I didn't bring up values earlier. So biases, triggers, values. The reason I add that as to start is you need to understand who you are so you understand how you show up, right? And so the book goes through several ways to do that. And then educating yourself in your environment. And I go through lessons I learned from my father, my pops, as a diplomat, because every time you're a diplomat, you get posted to different parts of the world and you have to understand that culture and your culture and then know how that can favor both of you, the countries and policies. And so it's really about expanding the lens beyond yourself to understand what makes several people feel the emotions. You know, what makes you feel happy could be different from me, right? What makes me feel angry? What makes me feel any sort of thing? And then really understanding how to expand your knowledge to understand who makes the decisions in your society, in your community, beyond just the 2 years or 4 years the election cycles present. And then the don't perpetuate is really about using everything you've learned to make sure that when you are now in systems, healthcare, workplace, family, schools, friends, you are not perpetuating systems. You might hear something based on what you educated, but it's not helpful. But based on the privilege and the bias you have, someone is not going to say anything. How do you make sure you're not part of the problem? and then it's really using everything you learned. And then they instead communicate it's about opening dialogue. We don't live in a world where everyone agrees. In fact, most people don't agree. But how do you open dialogue, right? How do you create an opportunity where you can open dialogue and still be able to see each other and not dehumanize each other? Because I think conflict is healthy, but there can also be unhealthy conflict. And so it's me walking through that balance. So that's what the book is about.
I love it. And I love that you think in threes. And I love all of the things that you just gave us, these juicy chicken nuggets that I want to put in dipping sauce and eat. I truly just think the world of you. I think you're so fantastic. And I think that the work that you're doing is so needed, so necessary. We always ask this question. This is like one of your last ones, okay? Not to get sad, but I am. We say here it's the Improve It podcast, and your it is that thing that you're put on this earth to do. It's that it factor. What is the one thing that you bring to this world, or your it?
Oh my gosh. I think my it is to challenge people to really fight against systems of oppression and suppression. I think, and I'll tell you what, I think we've accepted so many things so far in the world. You know, the older I've gotten, the more I question certain things. And I remember beauty standards being different from the way they are now. And I'm always thinking, how did we just blatantly accept this? I remember education systems telling textbooks that had no one looking like me coming up until enslavement and colonization. And I'm like, how did we just accept this? And so for me, I think it's me just really, the one thing I've been put here is to really get people to be more curious and to be okay with challenging. Because growing up, it wasn't okay to challenge. In fact, I grew up initially under dictatorships. You couldn't challenge.
Yeah.
so my existence is in direct opposition to that. So challenge the status quo. There you go.
That's it. And use your difference to make a difference. I love it. Oh, yeah. Yep. That's it. And I want to end with a little fun because, you know, we talked about failure a little bit. It's a big part of the improv world, which is there are no mistakes, only gifts. This is called the failure lightning round. It's just kind of fun. And I'm going to ask you a series of questions. And if you answer, I want you to answer with one word. And if you answer with more than one word, I'm going to give you a failure and like a weird, creepy voice, just like that. But it's just for fun, And then we're going to end this the right way because hopefully nuance, our intention was met, which I think it was.
Yes.
So let's end this with some fun. All right. So are you ready for the failure lightning round?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Here we go. What's one word to describe your early career?
Challenging.
Yes. Okay. One word to describe where you are now in your career.
Excited.
Yes. One word to describe your podcast hosting style.
Oh, I'm inspired.
Yes. Fail, yeah. Okay, just had to get one in. Okay.
Oh, yeah. That was too slow.
That's okay. One word to describe your shoe fashion style, aka my teal Nikes.
Exquisite.
Yes.
I even finished that.
Yes. And one word to describe this interview.
Wide ranging. That's 2 words. Oh, fail yeah.
Hell yeah. But you crushed it. And I love these answers. I love it. Okay. So tell our Improve It peeps where they can find you if they want to connect, and we'll make sure to link all the things. Where can they find you if they want more Tayo in their life?
Digital home is tayoRockson.com. So you can find me there with, you know, my book, my podcast and everything. I'm on every social media platform. I'm mainly on TikTok and LinkedIn now. So Tayo Rockson, just type Tayo Rockson. You see me there. My podcast is As Told by Nomads, and my book is Use Your Difference to Make a Difference.
I love it so much. And I will say you have really made a difference on our show today. So thanks for being an inspiration, for bringing that nuance to the world, for bringing that it. The world needs more you, and they need more teal sneakers. So
amen.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much. All right. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, Tayo Rockson did that. There it is. So let's just get to the bottom of this. I love this acronym C. Make sure you see behind the fogginess of your organization when it comes to communicating cross-culturally. C, again, stands for security and belonging, that S. That first E stands for educate yourself on the environment. And the third E stands for explore and understand your own triggers. So I want to just first and foremost say I love this acronym because we want to create a space where people feel seen, heard, valued. That's what we're here to do. That's what Improve It is all about. And that's what Tayo is all about. So I really want you to take this acronym and break it down. Ask yourself, does your organization have a sense of security and belonging? Educate yourself on what is going on in your environment. Educate yourself on the different types of cultures that exist within your organization, or the different types of things that we might not see or talk about on a daily basis. So it could be mental disabilities. It could be different types of cultures. But make sure to ask yourself, are these standards and are the norms fitting everyone? Educate yourself and then question, do the standards and norms fit everyone here? And then explore your own triggers, understand them. What are your biases that you have? Because we all have bias. That is a fact of life. So I want you to really break down this acronym C. Ask yourself these questions. Take these questions to your leadership. And please pass this episode on if it spoke to you today, if it is something that could be beneficial in your organization or to another leader you know leading cross-cultural teams. I just want to tell you, Improve It peeps, you are crushing it. And I'm so grateful for this time we get to spend together every week. Please consider leaving us a review on iTunes if you haven't done so, because I want to bring more guests like Tayo on this show. And that's how he knows that you listen. And that's how he knows that we have this awesome community of people leaders who want to do wonderful things in the world. So here's my ask. Leave us a 5-star iTunes review. And then you know what I'm going to say. Keep failing, keep improving, because the world needs that special it that only you can bring. I'll see you next week.
Hey friends, thanks for tuning in to Improve It. I am so happy you were along for the ride. If you enjoyed this show, head on over to iTunes to leave us a 5-star review and subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode. New episodes drop every Wednesday. Now, if you're really feeling today's show and you've improved it even just a little bit, please take a screenshot and tag me at Keeping It Real Deal on Instagram and share it in your stories. I'll see you next week, but I want to leave you with this thought. What did you improve today, and how will that help your future successful self? Think about it. I am rooting for you, and the world needs that special it that only you can bring. See you next time.